Let's talk about compilation flags. Compilation flags allow you to run different code depending on which build configuration you're in. Oftentimes, this is used for release versus debug builds. Debug builds are builds that you make off of Xcode, and release builds are when you distribute to the App Store, so what the user is actually going to run. When you're running locally off of Xcode in those debug builds, you might want tools like a debug menu or different feature flags enabled, or you might want verbose logging, and you don't want those things to get printed to the console when you're running in a release build, maybe for performance, maybe for security. One of my favorite ways to use a compilation flag is for something like a debug menu. Let me show you how this works. Let's first look at how you add a compilation flag. The first thing you want to do is navigate to your build settings. You're going to want to click your app in the left-hand panel and then navigate to build settings. Under build settings, if you search for compilation, you should see that you already have a built-in compilation flag called debug. If you create different schemes for different environments, for example, if you work for a large company, you might have a QA environment and you might have a production environment. You can also change these compilation flags so they're different between your different targets. So here we only have one target, we only have one environment, but you might have different targets. And then here you could say, all right, this is my pre-prod build. And then you can have code that will only run in your pre-production environment. Let's make use of this debug flag. So now if we go back to our content view, our main view here, this is where I actually show the button, and this debug menu is this little ladybug in a circle button here. If I click it, it'll show my debug menu, and I obviously don't want this to show in production. So let's add that. So to make use of your flag, you're gonna have the £, then if, and then debug. If the debug compilation flag is on, then show the debug button. You can also have an else like this, but you have to end with an end if. So another $, and then end if. In this case, we don't have an else. We don't want to present something else in production, so I can get rid of this else and just have if we're in debug, then show the debug button. You might also want to wrap presenting the sheet in this if statement. That way you absolutely make sure that the debug menu isn't presented in your release build. All right, so let's run a debug version of this build. So I'm going to click play. And we see here we do have our debug menu. And now let's change it to a release build. The way that you would change your debug build into a release build is up here in your scheme. You go to Edit Scheme, go to Info, and under here, Build Configuration is Debug. I'm going to change it to Release. I'm going to close, and I'm going to run it again. And now in our release version, we do not have that debug menu, which is exactly what we want. I hope you learned something today, and I will see you next time.